Hello there, everyone. Thank you all for joining, and welcome to our live stream today, where we're going to be talking about Ryder and Odin Inspector for Unity. It's going to be a very interesting show. We've got a special guest from Sirenix who's going to talk about Odin. We'll introduce Antonio shortly. First of all, though, let's get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. So I'm Matt, by the way, and one of the developer advocates here at JetBrains, and I'll be the host. I'll be chatting to Antonio and introduce a few things. But first of all, a couple of things to cover is, of course, if you've got any questions during the stream, please use the chat window. I see that my colleague Khalid's already in there, so say hi. Tell him I said hi too. And if you've got any questions, Khalid will try and help where he can, and if not, we'll bring them onto the stream and we'll see what we can do. Other thing to say, of course, as well, is that the session is being recorded. Obviously, it's on YouTube. If you want to pause it, if you want to pop off and come back again, it's going to be available to you there. It'll be available on YouTube, and we'll also publish the URL through the usual channels once we're done. Okay, so with that housekeeping out of the way, I think we should bring on our guest. We've got Antonio joining us from Sirenix. Hi, Antonio. How's it going?
Hey, man. Pretty good.
Fantastic. So you're going to talk to us today about Odin Inspector, which is a very popular plugin for Unity. And we're very pleased to sort of say that in Ryder 2024.1 release, we added support for Odin directly into Ryder itself. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to have a live stream here to sort of showcase what Odin can do and how you can make the most of that with Ryder. So how about you introduce yourself and take it away?
Yeah, so I'm Antonio. I work for Sirenix for about 2 years now. I started as a community member on the Discord channel and sort of started doing support and then became a developer on the Odin plugin itself. And to just give a small introduction to what Odin actually is, it sort of consists of three different smaller plugins, or three different plugins that work in synergy together. So there's Odin Inspector, which is probably the one that most people know already, which gives you a lot of attributes to change how the inspector looks and works. And then there's the Odin Validator, which is sort of a newer plugin that came after the original Odin Inspector one. And that one is used to validate the data that you enter into the inspector. So let's say you want to have an integer and it has a range from 0 to 10, and you want to make sure that it always keeps in between that and gives you error messages when it isn't. Then you can use the Odin Validator for that. And then there's also the Odin Serializer, which is used by Odin Inspector and Odin Validator, and it makes sure that the data you enter and validate actually gets saved, which is pretty important to try to enter data. So I prepared a small example to kind of showcase how easy Odin Inspector makes it to customize how a designer, for example, would work in the inspector and change the data. So right now on the inspector side right here, you can see it's the basic vanilla Unity inspector, so there's no attributes whatsoever. And let's say we want to quickly improve how it looks and the workflow. For example, right here we can see we have an image, and we sort of want to choose one like this one, right? And right now we can't see what is selected. We only have a name. And then using Odin Inspector, we can just simply go in here, look at the property that is connected to this one, and then we can just say preview field, for example, which is an Odin attribute. And we can give it a size, let's say 80, save that real quick, and we can immediately see that we get a nice preview without having to write custom editor code, which is basically the focus of an inspector, right? We want to minimize how much custom editor code you have to write, and sort of give you an attribute for everything and make it composable, so you can arrive at something pretty close to what you would write if you would do it from complete scratch. But you have obviously the advantage that everything is written for you and everything is tested to work. So let's do another example to how we can make this look a bit better. Let's say I want to group the name and the description together, and maybe even the image. I can just go in here and say, okay, I want to have a box group, give it a nice name. Let's say, let's just call it data, doesn't really matter. And we want all these 3 elements, all these 3 properties to be inside of that group. We can save it real quick, and we can see we have a nice distinction between the data right here, and then maybe let's say we want the level, health, and mana to be in a box group as well, right? We can just copy those over. Call this one stats maybe. We delete this one. And maybe let's say we don't really want it to be just like simple input fields. Maybe we want like a nice progress bar or a nice slider. We can also do that, but just using another of Odin's attributes, progress bar, and then we can say, okay, the level is a minimum of 1 and goes up to 100, and the health has a minimum of 0 and goes up to 100, and the mana is like, let's say 1 to 10, right? So now you can see we have nice sliders in here, nice progress bars. We can also change the colors and stuff like that, or make it like put it in steps. And another interesting one maybe would be to show, let's say we have a duration, right, for the ability. So let's say it goes for 2 seconds, and we want the ability to say, okay, this is 2 seconds, right? Because right now we can't really see what the unit is that we're using. And of course, Odin also has an attribute for that. So we can say what the base unit is, which means which unit actually gets saved. So let's choose milliseconds, for example, because that's easy to work with. But we want to show the designer the duration in seconds, because it's easier for the designer to work with seconds than it is with milliseconds, right? So we're going to say I want seconds. And now we can see it immediately shows us, let me say, I type in 2 seconds. And the underlying value that gets saved and serialized is actually 2000, right? Because it takes the seconds and transforms them into milliseconds, basically. And we can actually see that by just changing the unit right here. You can see, okay, it's 2000 milliseconds. Or maybe we want it in minutes. It's 0.033 minutes. And yes, so we can sort of see how quickly I've changed the whole look of the inspector just by adding a few attributes. And just to get an idea of like what you can achieve, I have the list of attributes right here. It's a bit more than 100. And you can see we have custom sliders, we have custom info boxes, validation attributes that make things required, or drop downs. So let's say for the name, for example, right? I don't want to type in the name manually. I want to say I want a drop down. So we take the value drop down attribute, and I have a class somewhere which holds all the names. So I can just say character data names, and as you can see, that's just a static class right now for showcasing purposes. But you can basically write normal C# code in here, or even have method names that you want to reference, and it will get the values for you. And now we can see we get a nice drop down with all the names that are available, and I can say, okay, this one is Darian Frostbone. Let's match it to this one, and just make it easier to work with. That's sort of the Odin inspector part. And then we also want to make sure that the data we enter in here is actually valid, right? So we don't want to go above the level or below the health that is possible, right? So let's say in here we say, let's just say, how would we? Let's say the name, right? So we want to say the name is required. We always want to have a name, and we also always want to have a description, right? Simply save that, and we can immediately see we have no description, so it says a description is required. And if you go into the Odin validator window, you can also see all the issues that you have in your entire project right here, and you can fix them right through the small window here. And if you have like a lot of them, or you can see I have like a bunch of names that are required, a bunch of descriptions, I can also bulk fix them. So I can say I want to change all the names. I want to give them all a new value. So let's just say test, right? Click fix now, and now everything has a description and a name. Simple as that, right? Everything that was in the list. And besides the attributes, there's also a lot of other amazing tools that Odin will provide you just out of the box. For example, as I mentioned, the units that you've seen and the abilities. You get like nice windows where you can see all your units. You can also add custom units and have them show up in here. You can play with the values, see what they become. We have custom icons that you can use in your custom inspectors, and most attributes that sort of change how things look also have the ability to select icons for you. Right. That's sort of the gist of it. So just to summarize it, you have the Odin Inspector, which changes how the inspector looks, how you work with it, right? So nice progress bars, nice pictures. Then you have the Odin Validator, which makes sure that everything that you enter is actually valid and gives you the ability to quickly find issues in your project and fix them as they occur, right? So you don't accumulate 1,000 or like 10,000 errors, and then when it's time to build, you see all the issues that you have, and you have to go through 10,000 errors, right? So you would rather have them pop up immediately when you make the mistake and just change them, so it never like gets that far. And then there's the serializer, which makes sure that you can actually save all the data, even more complex data, like for example dictionaries, which is a very popular one that people want to serialize, which Unity doesn't provide by default. Yeah, that's sort of it.
Awesome. I'm loving the demo you've got there. There's a huge amount of functionality going on in there. I particularly like the validation. I think there's a lot of things you can do there. It's nice. It's kind of one of the things that Ryder does in a way by pulling, trying to pull the information you've got right where you're working with it, right, and show you those errors straight away rather than waiting until runtime or when it kind of goes wrong. What kind of rules can you have with your validation there? Can you show us like a sort of a range of the different validations you've got?
Yeah, so by default, it comes with a few more general purpose rules. So these are all the ones that are in there right now. So you can see it checks for broken prefab connections, duplicate components, like huge transform positions. So let's say I have a camera, right, and then the position is at like a hugely like massive number, right? Then it will pick it up and tell you that that's probably not what you want to do. Or let's say you have a list and the list contains elements that are null, for example. But the real power of the validator comes into play when you create your own validation rules, because it's sort of a project-specific thing, right? When you get down to it. For example, let's say for the character, right? You want to have a specific validation rule or a specific validator to validate your characters if you have the need for it. So we provide basic default ones that you can use to cover up a lot of basic cases, but then we give you the tools to create your own validation rules to make it even more customized and better for your project.
How would you go about creating your own custom validation?
The most simple way is probably just to implement the iSelf validator interface. And so all it does is you have a method called validate, and you have a result parameter. And then in here, you can just do your checks. So you can say, for example, let's say we want to have at least one ability. So we just check the count and make sure it's above 0, right? Or yeah, let's do that. Or let's say if it is 0, right? We don't want that. We say we add an error, and then the error message is you need at least one ability, right? And then you just save that, and then it will do its magic. And if we find one which has, you can see here, it immediately tells you that the Elijah Nightshade, so this one, needs an ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as right now, it doesn't have a fix for it, right? So it only gives you the error message, and then you can go in here and manually change it, and you can see how it like immediately updates and tells you that it's fixed.
Did we
But
get a
you
little
can,
shake then? Did it just give us a little shake?
yeah,
Close the thing. Nice. You gotta love those little widgets as well.
yeah. So when it appears right here,
Yeah.
it sort of gives you nice feedback that something's wrong, right? So let's
Mm-hmm.
imagine you're entering something, and then you see the shake, and you immediately know, okay, so something's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it much more obvious that there's something wrong straight away.
Right, and you can even provide your own fixes then, right? So you can say, I want to have it with a fix, and then the fix just adds to the abilities, right? So we can just say add a new ability, just to make a really simple example. And now it will even show me the fix button, right? And it will execute whatever I gave it in here. And when I click it, it will immediately do this. And by providing a fix, you also unlock the bulk fix issues capability, right? So if I have a bunch of them, right? So let's say I have, like, you can see a ton of abilities that need to be fixed. I can just click on one, select bulk fix issues, and then you can see I have like 7 or 8 abilities that need to be fixed. And I can just click the fix now button, and all of them have an ability.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I was going to ask actually if these inspections that you've got, the validation, can you be run in bulk as well? You know, you see, I think you were clicking on the items there to show them in the inspector, but can you just there you go, look at that.
Yeah, you can
Fantastic.
just
Yeah.
have a project-wide search basically, and you can also configure everything to a very detailed. Like you can have it validate in the background. So it will continuously validate in the background without you having to like inspect the object or anything like that. It would just find the issues and show them to you.
And so, I guess you can easily add extra validation then to your objects, and then be able to run them across a whole bunch of prefabs or objects, and see what's going on and get that immediate feedback.
Right.
You don't have to click through everything and get it.
Yeah, and you can even like validate scenes. Like you can have one scene open and by clicking the button here, validate all the other scenes that are closed. And we'll sort of open them for you, go through like in the background and check everything, and then you will have all the info you need. Another cool thing that might be worth showing is for the Odin Inspector. Let's say you have all these characters, right, and then you have a designer, and you sort of want him to be able to change all the data and components of the character without having to go into the project view and like hunting everything down. So you want to provide a nice window that you can just open and have everything in a compact form factor. And to do that, you can just simply create a new Odin menu editor window. And as you can see, the code is very minimal. And most of it is just boilerplate code to even be able to open the window in Unity, right? And then you only have these 3 lines, which just finds all the characters and adds them to the tree. And then we can see that if I find the window, I have a nice window right here with all the characters that were in here. I can go through them. I have the nice looking inspector. So whatever you do with the attributes extends to any place where it will be drawn, not only the inspector, even in editor windows and stuff like that.
And so that editor window is effectively showing you the same things you would see in the inspector window, but obviously just in a much more convenient manner because you get all of the characters.
Exactly.
Right.
All the validation, everything works the same.
That's cool.
Yeah, but just it's sort of we want to take away the need to write a custom inspector and then write a custom editor window and then write like everything you do sort of has to be custom code, right? And
Yes.
with Odin, we kind of want to make it so you don't write custom code, you just use the attributes, and then whenever you want to draw something like that, you want to create an editor window, whatever, it's very simple. You don't have to duplicate anything, basically.
Yeah, just a small amount of code to get it going. to wire it together, basically, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So an Odin menu tree there, for example, that is the pop-up window. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So with the different inspectors that you've got then as well, I mean, yeah, you're right. Writing them from scratch in Unity, you tend to have to it's quite a lot of boilerplate, really, isn't it? You know, have to add every single button, every single item, every single list, add the items into the list, and then make sure it's all saved. And basically, all the attributes just handle all that for you.
Yeah. It's pretty much anything you want to do, we probably have an attribute for.
Mhm.
For example, you mentioned the buttons, and in normal Unity, you would need to make a custom editor and then like create a button in there, which also isn't that bad to do like code-wise, but you're just doing it for a simple button, right? So it sort of defeats the purpose. You want to save time, not like waste time on creating editors. So with Odin Inspector, for example, you can just say, I want a nice button. I have a method that, I don't know, just log something, right? Or just tests something with the things you have entered. So let's just, for demonstration purposes, do a simple log there. And we can save that, and immediately we can see that we get the button right here in the editor window or in the inspector. You can click it and it will log it for you, right?
Nice. Yeah, that makes it nice and straightforward to get going there. What about so this is kind of writing an inspector for a serialized object or for a mono behavior. But what about if you're using a type, if you're using some sort of nested type, like just a C# class even? Can you write like an inspector for a C# class which can then be used from different assets? You know, if it's used in multiple places.
That's actually sort of what I'm doing, or not sort of. It is what I'm doing right here
Of course,
in the abilities.
Yes.
So if we go down, we can see here in the list, it's a list of abilities, and the class itself is just a simple C# class. And I use the unit one right here, but I can also like with the other ones, I can say, okay, this one needs to be a progress bar, needs to be from 0 to 100, whatever. And wherever it will be drawn, it will have this the nice looking inspector.
Yeah.
So if I had another scriptable object, another mono behavior or whatever, it would always draw like this.
Cool. That's nice. I like the units on that one as well. It hadn't clicked that you know the object you're using there is then being used to generate the Odin Inspector. I really like the units idea. That's great. Being able to save the data in the unit that you want to use, but then have it editable in something which is much more user friendly is really nice. As you were clicking through, though, did you show something where you can have custom units as well, and so you can set up your own conversions between them?
Yeah, you can have custom units. It's only via code right now, so you can't add them from the window right here. But it's a very simple, like a few lines of code where you where you can create your own units and then decide like how they convert into other units.
Yep.
So let's say you have one right here, distance, right? So you can convert from nanometer to everything else that's in this group basically, and you can add to this group or create your own group, right? So if you have like a very special unit that we might not have introduced yet, or that's just special to your game or to your project, you can just create your own one, and it will.
I like being able to define things in nautical miles. You know, that's a good one. And any game that needs parsecs is going to be a good game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the main idea behind this actually came from a team member who is creating a tank simulation game, and so he found himself having to enter a lot of accurate like measurements and stuff like that. But it's always hard to work with a specific unit and then save it in another one. And so he sort of came up with it, and it even allows you to enter it in another unit, and then it will convert it for you. So let's say I want to have 1 minute worth of seconds in here. I can just type in 1, and then the unit basically, right?
Yep.
So okay, wait, that's not minutes. That's seconds. Well, you can see with 1 second, I can say if 1 millisecond, and then it immediately converts it into seconds, right? Or I want to say I want it in 1 hour. So I type in 1h, it shows me that it wants to do an hour. I type in enter, and it immediately shows me the seconds. So not only does it show you another unit that's more convenient to work with, you can also enter or like copy from let's say you go to Google, right? And you're trying to find out how fast like a bullet moves, and then you just copy and paste the value into here, and it will just convert them to the unit that you want to work with.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea because it's very, very easy to forget what unit you're using, and then use the wrong one, and then all of a sudden you've got hard to diagnose issues because you're assuming one thing here and assuming something else here, whereas here you can actually you know for sure what's going on, which is really nice. We've got a question from the chat, which says, I think it's from Ember there, saying, I'm wondering that this looks amazing for big projects where consistency is important, but how useful do you think it is for smaller projects such as game jams? Do you think there's more of a, is it better suited to larger projects, or do you think it's useful across the board?
I would say it's useful across the board. I think it's even more useful for smaller projects or even game jams, because obviously when you do a game jam, you don't really have time to create a custom editor window and like custom inspectors the normal way, the Unity way. You sort of get the ability to do that and to improve the workflow even with the small amount of time you have. And even if it's just for like quick testing, right? If you just want a quick button to fire up a method that does something, and you just want to quickly test if it's doing what it's supposed to do without starting the game, without like compiling and stuff like that. So I think it's actually especially useful for smaller projects and for game jams.
Also, I think a follow-on question for that would be, how easy would it be to integrate an existing project? If you've already got an existing project, can you slowly migrate to using Odin, or do you kind of have to replace your existing editor window with an Odin thing? Can the two models, like the Unity model of making editor windows and Odin, live side by side?
Mm-hmm. They do live side by side, and Odin doesn't overwrite your custom editor. So if you already have a custom Unity editor that you have created and that you're happy with, and then you put in Odin Inspector into your project, it will just use the Unity one that you're used to. Mm-hmm. And you actually have a lot of control about what actually gets drawn by Odin and what doesn't. So if you go into preferences, for example, and you go into the editor types, you can see like a huge list with all the types that are in the projects. And then you can see all the ones that have a check mark are the ones that are drawn by Odin. And the other ones are, you can see this one, for example, is drawn by the TM TextMesh Pro text container editor. Yeah. So we don't touch that. You will have to explicitly say that you want Odin to draw it if you already have a custom inspector for it, basically.
And so I can see there's going to be like some third-party, or Unity packages there, Unity types there. Can you add custom editors on top of the Unity type? So could me as a developer on a game add extra stuff into the editor for a Unity type?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So as long as the Unity type doesn't have a custom editor, right? So Odin is drawing it, and it doesn't have a custom editor, which it sort of wouldn't overwrite, right? As long as that's not the case, you could use Odin to customize how it looks, and you could even do it if you don't want to. If you don't want to, like, you don't have access to the Unity type via code, right? So you can't just go in the Unity type and add an attribute and say, this is how it should look. But what you can do actually is create what we call a attribute processor.
Okay.
And all it does is it adds attributes programmatically, right? Oops. Attribute processor. There we go. And then we can just give it a type. So let's say we have someone a behavior. And then we can, let me see, process all the children. And then we can just say, based on some logic that we want to do. So let's just say if the member name is equal to test, we want to add a new attribute to it. So we have the attributes list, which is a parameter that is that's passed in. And we just want to say, okay, we want a GUI color attribute. So we want to change its color and we want to make it green, right?
Yeah.
So now when I go into the, let me save that. Now if I go into this mono behavior and I have some field that is called test, right? Because that's what we're checking. We can just close that. Add a new object, add a mono behavior, and we can see that I've actually added the attribute programmatically through an attribute processor. And so this class could live in another DLL, right? And if you have one for editor specific code, it could live there. If you don't want to like touch this class, right? If you want to do it like this, for example, if you don't want to have all the attributes in here, right? You want a clean data structure, let's say. Then you could basically move all of this into a attribute processor, and this would be this would look normal, be clean, and you would have the attribute processor doing all of this for you. And that would also allow you to add into Unity types.
That's really cool. That's really very flexible. It seems to be an incredibly flexible system. We have another question which we can ask there is how easy would it be to display a model in the inspector? So I presume that means sort of a preview, like we had a preview of the images. Can we preview other things as well?
Yeah, so we could, let me see, look, just add a mesh, for example, right? You can actually show the entire, I think it's the inline editor. And then we go in here, and then we choose a mesh. Let's go. And now it has all sorts of data, but we can actually customize how it will look. So we want to say we want a large preview. And you can see I have like the whole view of the model right here when it's just one attribute.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's a lot of power in these attributes. This is that's really cool. That's nice. Another question I got for you as well, though, is does Odin have a runtime cost? So I guess with the editor windows, that's going to be a no. But what about the validation? Is the validation only at edit time, or is that a runtime thing as well?
So the validation is only at edit time. So there's nothing that will end up in the game that's related to Odin other than the serializer, if you're using that. So if you're using the serializer, then that's in there, but it's a very small DLL file that will be shipped. And if you don't want it to be in the game, like if you don't need the capabilities, you can also disable it in the preferences and just go to let me see, is it in the AT generation? Not sure right now where it actually is. Let me see. It's right here. So you can enable the editor only mode. I can't do it right now because it's in source code mode, right? But normally, if you just install it the usual way, you could just enable editor only mode, and then nothing would be introduced into the final game.
Okay, and how would you install it the usual way, by the way? So if anyone's interested now in giving this a go and trying it, what would be the best way to get going?
Yeah, so you can just get the Odin Inspector and Odin Validator on the asset store. And you can also get it on our website, which is odininspector.com. So basically right here. There you can get all the Odin Inspector, Odin Validator. You can have custom packages if you need that, like with your own custom namespaces. If you have if you are in school, in uni or whatever, you can get the educational license. You can also get a 90-day free trial. If you want to test it out, that includes Odin Inspector and Odin Validator, so the whole package, no strings attached. You can use every feature. Yeah, so OdinInspector.com or the asset store.
Okay, and how is it priced then for commercial use? Is it?
Yeah, so there is the personal license, which is basically if you're in a specific range of revenue, I think it's 200,000, where you can use personal. It's a per seat license, so everyone that uses Odin Inspector in the project basically needs one license. And then if you go over the 200,000 range, you would need the enterprise license, which is also a per seat license, and it's a yearly subscription with a fallback license. So if you get it for 1 year, then you have the ability to use that version even if you stop paying the enterprise fee, basically. You have the ability to use that version for whatever, like for however long you want, basically.
Yeah, very good, very good. I think we've just got a last couple of questions before we move on. What would be the best way of creating sort of an Odin inspector which you can share with the community? Is that a thing that would be useful? Like, you can extend some types there, for example, some of the Unity types to provide a nicer editor experience. Could you then share that with the community or share it with with the team? What would be the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so there is no way to share it without the other person also having Odin, right? So you're perfectly allowed to create inspectors with Odin and add attributes and stuff like that, and upload it to the asset store. But you would then probably need to add it to as a dependency, right? So would say, okay, if you want to use it, then you would also need to download Odin Inspector or Odin Validator or whatever. What we do allow, though, is you can add the attributes DLL. You can add that to your package in the asset store, and what that will do is it will have all the attribute definitions. So not the functionality. The functionality is separate, but it will have all the Odin attribute definitions, which means when someone downloads your package and doesn't have Odin, he won't get any errors, right? So it's sort of at that point, it's sort of a opt-in solution. So if you have Odin, you get the benefits that the package creator intended, and if you don't have it, then you just don't get the benefits, basically.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice way to be able to share that around and be able to make use of it as an asset consumer as well. So if you're an asset producer, then you can add extra value, and if you're a consumer, then you can get that value yourself if you're using Odin. That's nice. I like that. That's cool. But what about things like are there any kind of assets which are kind of based purely on Odin, or is it? I guess the question is Odin a value add on top of an asset there, or can there be assets which are sort of purely based on Odin, like an FPS kit or an RPG kit? Here's the kind of editor you need for that, or is that not really a thing?
Well, you could make use of like outside of the attribute system, right? Odin also provides you with a lot of ways to create custom editors faster, or like in a better way than Unity would do normally. So you could use that and create your own stuff in a kit or something, but you would still need to also have Odin for it to work. But it would certainly make it easier for you to create the whole kit if you use the tools and the libraries that Odin Inspector uses, because everything or most of the things we use to create the editors for the attributes is available to the user as well, and so you can just use that to create your own stuff.
Okay, good, great stuff. I guess one last question to finish off with is like, how often does Odin get updated, and have you got any new releases or new features that you'd like to share with us?
It gets updated fairly often, actually. Like it sort of depends. Sometimes it has when we're working on bigger projects, the update time sort of slows down, but it updates regularly, right? Because we also have to make sure that we keep up with the Unity changes and make sure that it works on every version, because we sort of have to assure that it works on every Unity version that you are on. So we update it very frequently. And you can actually see if you go into the patch notes, like we updated it 6 days ago, right?
Yeah, we can see the banner at the top of the website there.
Yeah, and then before that it was 13 days ago, and then
Okay.
a month ago. So it's very frequent.
Nice.
And when it comes to features that we've added a new support package for the localization system, which
Is that
is
for Unity's localization system? Is that?
yeah, exactly.
Ah, cool.
So we sort of went in and we tried to see what we can do to improve the workflow for the localization system in Unity, and we took a look at the localization window that they have, so where you actually put in the data and work with the images. And as you can see, we tried to make it very user friendly, easy to use, and it's also very fast. So we tried it with like thousands or even millions of entries, and it doesn't even hitch.
Fantastic. That's great. I like it. It does kind of show through in everything you've been showing that you're aiming to make this as user friendly and as easy as possible to consume, which is great. We have actually had one more question come in on the chat there. There's a comment saying, I noticed sometimes Odin warns that some serializations aren't recommended. Is there any kind of any reason for that kind of thing?
So I guess what it's referring to is that we sometimes say not to use the Odin serializer.
Okay.
That's only because if the serialization that Unity provides is good enough, right? If you have a list and Unity can serialize the list, then you don't really need the Odin serializer, which adds a bit of overhead to the Unity serialization. So we sort of tell you, okay, only use it if you really need it. If you know you need it, then use it. So it's not sort of okay, just use it everywhere and then.
Yeah. What would be your rule of thumb for using the Odin serializer then?
Yeah, like I said, I would say try it with Unity first. So try the normal Unity way, and then if the serialization doesn't work, or if you know that Unity doesn't serialize it, then I would use the Odin Inspector. For example, for a dictionary, we know that Unity doesn't serialize a dictionary. Use it there. For a string, we don't need Odin to serialize a string. So just don't use it. And we also encourage you to keep the types that you try to serialize very simple. So what Odin Inspector allows you is to serialize very complex types, which gives you a lot of power, but it also gives you a lot of responsibility to use that power in a responsible way, right? So we sort of say, try not to use it too much, because that also encourages you to keep the data simple, which in the long run will help you and your project.
All right, that sounds great. How about we switch over and take a look at some of the Ryder integration that we've been working on then. So awesome. For anybody on the stream who isn't familiar with Ryder, this is it on my screen now. We've got a nice IDE which is perfect for working with game development, with Unity. We've also got support for Unreal and Godot, but we're not talking about those engines today. So we've got great support for Unity. You can see just by sort of the default view here on the right, we've instead of showing you the usual sort of C# projects and solutions view and everything, you've got a similar sort of project view like you get in Unity itself. There you can see your assets, you can see your packages and so on. You've got a single click on the top right here to attach the debugger, so you can attach to the editor and start debugging. You can attach the editor and put it into play mode as well. There's buttons up here to switch you into play mode. But the key thing really which makes Ryder useful for folks is the ability to be really smart about what your code is doing. So we can do shift and start searching for something. And I can just type things like TDMM to very quickly get you to Tower Defense main menu, and it'll jump you around in there. Once you're in the code, then you can have a look at what your items are, and you can just start typing those as well and jump around the code that you want. I can do shift again. Let's go to homing projectile. You don't have to be exact, and it can find the files and types for you, which is really useful. And so you've got a lot of navigation. We index your files as soon as we open a project. We also index your assets, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But once you're in your project, Shift. I always say whenever I'm showing this is the two keyboard shortcuts that you need to know are Shift and Alt Enter. Shift is all about navigation. You got the tabs across the top. You can just hit tab and you'll see different things. So I can search for everything, classes or files. Symbols is a good one as well. So if I want to look for levels select, for example, it shows me fields, methods, and types and everything. So it's a great way of being able to find everything. But I can also search for actions as well. So if you don't know any keyboard shortcuts, you can just start typing here with Shift, hit tab a few times, and then search for the actions that you're looking for, whether it's rename, navigate, find usages, and so on. The other keyboard shortcut is the Alt Enter one, and that gives us the context menu of the things you can do here. And there's always something you can do. You can change a public method to an internal method. You can create a constructor, create unit tests for things as well, actually, which is useful. But then there's items down the bottom here as well: navigation, refactoring, inspections, and so on. Navigate's a really good one. It gives us another context menu of the different things you can do for navigation. And here we can do things like go to base symbols or derive symbols. Let's do base symbols. And there it allows me to walk up and down the class hierarchy, which is great. I can see that my homing linear projectile derives from linear projectile, and so I can navigate there. And this one implements an interface. I could just do Alt Enter, navigate to, and let's go to derived symbols. In fact, I could just type that, another useful tip there, and be able to go and find items and navigate around. So it's a great way of being able to move around your files really quickly in your project. Some of the really cool things, though, are when you get into actually, wrong button, working with your code and working with inspections, for example. So if I'm just going to create a new code, I can right-click, and I've got items here to create a new class and so on. We've also got templates for creating new scripts or shader files. I'm going to create a mono behavior. Let's call this a new mono behavior. And that template then is editable as well. So I can change that if I wanted to and edit it, and I can add my own items in there. And then we've got code completion, as you'd expect. I can just start typing and it will complete things like types if I'm going to start a method with a return type, or it can also match the magic methods for Unity as well. So I can all of my event items, if I want to do late updates, or if I want to do I don't know, collision, or it's going to be on, let's say on enter or whatever, on collision enter, and it can create those. Or I can again use my Alt Enter menu and use the generate code item here. Again, it's another context menu of what is available. But then if we start typing Unity event functions, I then get a dialog of all the ones that I wanted to create, can select a bunch of them. You can see I've got the documentation at the bottom there as well. I can select which ones are there, and it'll just generate those for me. And if I hover over that, we should see now it's got the update. It knows that it's a Unity event function. It says it's called every frame, and it gives me the external documentation as well. I can click that, and I get the documentation opening on a different screen. Where there it is. And so it'll bring me there to my local documentation, which is really useful, really helpful. So you can sort of quickly, generate code, edit code, code completion, all the usual kind of things you want to do. The fun stuff is in the inspections. So we've got thousands of inspections for C# related stuff. It's great for helping you learn new C# functionality. We've got a load of Unity specific features in there as well. So for example, here we've got the Unity color, which is unityengine.color. And we can see now that it's highlighting that it's red, green, blue. We can also then Alt Enter on that, pick a color from the palette, and it'll rewrite that for us. So there's a lot of fun things we can do. We want to try and help you, like we saw with the validation in Odin. We want to try and bring issues that you're going to see at runtime into your code at edit time, so you can see where there's going to be problems there. Things like invalid method signature here. So I've got the do draw gizmo method there. It's telling me that the signature is incorrect. It's expecting some parameters passed in, and I can actually use the Alt Enter keyboard shortcut now to change the signature for me. It will automatically generate that. It added the static item there and added the things there. The version control here can show us what the difference is. You can see that was what I had originally with what we've got there. Things can get a bit more useful for Unity type things with the magic strings. So we've got things like here with the axis, for example, we can do code completion on the axis items you've got ready for your inputs, for the tags which you've got defined for your game, and even things like we know we're comparing the property tag against that item there, and even scenes as well. So we get to see what the scenes are. We will give you a warning to show you that they're not. There's no scene of that level of that name, and provide code completion too. What else can I show you, which is fun? Another good one is some of our redundant attributes. Serialization, we'll come back to that in just a second. We can see we've got a private field here, which is non-serialized. We've got a serialized field on there. This is going to highlight these items are not going to get serialized. So we've got a property there that's not going to get serialized because it's serialized field. Other items, something which we added in the last release actually is how you work with null objects. So the Unity object, excuse me, if you compare that against null, it does a lifetime check against the underlying game object. And previously we used to have this as a little warning to say that maybe you are missing something. But what we do now is, I think I might have to zoom in just a little bit more on that one. You can see there's a little icon here, which is telling us that there's, let's get the tooltip into there. If you're comparing it against null, we're doing an implicit check for the Unity object lifetime here. So you can see that there's actually extra behavior going on at this point. And then, whereas if you've got something like behavior is null, that's just doing a standard C# check there, and there's no additional sort of warnings or complaints there. What else should we show you? There's a couple of things that we could do, but in fact, while we're talking about attributes, let's go and have a look at the stuff we've got for Odin. If I just go straight into the Odin attributes file I've got here, we've got a number of things. We saw Antonio demonstrate some of these just a minute ago. We can create a tab group, and so this would be able to sort of group our fields in this, and they are grouped into a group with a specific name. And here, Ryder can actually give us code completion of this here. So this is really good because, again, if we're depending on things which are named out with strings, it's easy to have a typo and miss something and get an error, which you only notice when you swap back. Here, we'll complete it for you and we'll warn you if it's incorrect there as well. So we can see that down here with this box group. We've got this, in fact, we'll get another one there. We can show you a full path for nested groups as well, which is really useful. But we can see here we've got an inspection on this box group 02, where it's saying that you're trying to use something, excuse me, you're trying to use a group inside box group 02, but box group 02 doesn't work. It was a typo. I'd wanted to use box group 01. So if I use that, now it suddenly starts working. So let's just undo that. Another useful inspection here is if we've got a box group here called nested group and a vertical group called nested group, these are inconsistent. We don't want to be having a vertical group and a box group. They should be the same type of group there as well. So we actually warn you there. We say this was expected the group to use the box group attribute. And again, our magic Alt-Enter keyboard shortcut can fix that up for you as well. More color highlighting. If you're using the GUI color, we saw that when we were adding the color with the attribute processor. If you're using it in your own code here, you put in a color and we show you the color preview. And again, Alt-Enter allows us to pick it from the palette there, and it will update the code that you've got there. There's even a little picker here, which we can go off and we can go and find something. If we wanted to go and find the green of the, I'm not even going to be able to get it, of the background there, and we can update the code there. That's great if you want to just point it at your Unity game and pick up the actual thing there as well. One of the other nice things which we've done is we're working on adding support for Odin's expression. So we can use an actual C# expression here with this important string. And you see if I click on the name important string there, it's actually highlighting it in the string literal as well. And so what I could do is even control click on that string literal and it navigates me to the right place. If I bring up my navigate to menu again, I can do find usages, and it will show me where it's being used, not only as a return, as a normal sort of C# bit of code, but also as the value in a string literal there as well. And in fact, I could rename this as well. So we've got refactorings as well, which are great safe way of being able to rewrite your code. So I can rename things, and I know that I'm only going to rename the symbols for important string rather than just any string in a comment, for example. Let's call that a really important string. And we can see, let me just hide that again. We've updated the return statements, we've updated the actual definition itself, and we've updated the usage in the title group, which is pretty nifty. Let me just check something over here. Sorry, one sec. Looking good. Yep. And a couple more things to show with attributes and Odin. One of the things you can have is a field which is actually going to be a file path. And we can say what the parent folder is so that you can choose something within that file path. We actually provide completion for this as well. So I can select assets and do / documentation, and then it'll give me my sort of default folder that I wanted to have. Same with folder path there as well. And a little bit of integration with the Odin what am I trying to say? With the Odin validation attributes. So for example, here we've got a serialized field here, which has got the validation attribute saying max value of 10. So when you're working with this in the inspector, Odin will ensure that this value is only going to be less than 10. The max value is 10. But it doesn't necessarily, as we covered, doesn't add anything at runtime. But what Ryder can do is Ryder can have a look and say, well, okay, I know that this is only going to be a max value of 10 there. So if I try and do a comparison against 20, for example, then that's not going to be, that'll never be true. We know that the max value there is 10. So if I change that now to 5, let's try that one again, 5, then you can see the inspection goes away. Put it back to 20. I can't type. Put it back to 20, and we've got an inspection added again, which is pretty useful. So let's just quickly show a couple more things before we wrap up. I want to show you a bit more. So I was showing you with the refactorings here. Rename this value important string. Ryder added this formerly serialized as value here. That's because it's a serialized field. And you can see now we've got a little item here saying serializable, saying this field is initialized from the inspector. So Ryder recognizes when you've got a Unity serialized field. We've added support for Odin serialization as well. So if I just jump to another file here, you can see we've got a class which is deriving from Odin's serialized monobehavior base class, and we're using the Odin serialize attribute on these values here. We've got some generic classes, and we've got a dictionary down the bottom here, and you can see that these items are all being marked as serializable as well. So if I hover over that, it says this field is serialized by Odin, and if I zoom in a little bit, you can see we've got a nice little Odin icon there as well. So you know the difference between a Unity serialized item. Here it's got the Unity icon, and it's initialized by the inspector, and this one is serialized by Odin. So that's a useful way of knowing what values are being serialized. And you can see that Ryder also understands when your code is being used and when it's not being used. So for example, here we've got these items here. They look like they're grayed out, so it looks like they're not used. But we're actually saying that they're being assigned, but they're just not being used. So if I created a quick method here, and we do, I don't know, let's add something into the dictionary, comma, I don't know, new something or other. Then you can see now we've highlighted this, that we know that the value itself is being used. So it might be being set by the serialized item with the inspector and with Odin inspector, but we're not using it in code, so it can kind of give you those warnings as well. And I think that's what I will leave it at now. I think I've covered the integration that we've got with Ryder and Unity. And Odin, sorry, rather, and I think that will do now. I was just wondering now. Let me just check, see if we've got any questions. Let me just remove my screen for a second, and let's just check some questions. How are we doing? No, I think we are good. So Yeah, someone's commenting they like Shift. Yes, Shift is a great one. Again, Shift and Alt Enter, the two keyboard shortcuts. If you know those two, then you can know pretty much everything else there is. So I don't seem to have any questions on the sort of the Ryder integration there. I think we'll start to wrap it up. Antonio, thank you very much for your time, for showing us some things there. There's some great functionality in Odin. It looks like it's got a huge amount of functionality actually there. There's loads of things you're showing. The validation looks like there's tons of validation items which you can pick up and run with there. Same with the serialization and the editor windows as well. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Just want to say thanks for having me. Ryder integration is awesome.
And yeah, it's been great to collaborate on that one, to be honest. It's been nice working with you to get that implemented.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the first time I used the group auto completion, it was like crazy for me.
It's really nice to be able to I think that's one of the really powerful things about Ryder is being able to do auto completion of strings. You know, we've got so many things in so many different places which require strings. Having that support in the IDE is really, really useful. There's so many times when it's very easy to make a typo that it's a big help.
Yeah, and it also kind of tells you what you have to do, right? Because as I said, I've done a lot of support, and I know, for example, with the tab group, that people sometimes get confused on how to use the strings, or like how they the parameters are set up. And now if they use Ryder and they have the auto completion, it basically shows them what is available and sort of tells them what they need to enter, right? So it's sort of a small tutorial on how to use the group as well.
Yeah, nice. Hopefully we get a lot of feedback on different Ryder features that it helps people learn, which is a great thing to hear. So it's not just helping them do their job, but they're also learning from it as well, which is a nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's
okay.
That's what I started with, actually. So when I started using Ryder because it had nice Unity integration, and it also had all the as you said, for example, with the lifetime check, right? It sort of showed you all the warnings for stuff that you don't really know about if you just start using Unity, and you have no idea that it's doing like some special lifetime check somewhere. And not only does it give you a warning, but you can also go and see and check why it gives you the warning. Like it explains it to you what's happening and why you should not do that, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is a key thing as well. We try to provide sensible suggestions. You know, sometimes we have to choose a default and it doesn't please everybody, but it's usually configurable. But when there's a warning, we try and explain why we're doing it as well. So it's not just it's not a surprise. It's not just us saying so. We understand why it's doing it and it's there. So yeah, this is good stuff. Okay, I think we'll finish off then. A couple of final slides before I do. Thank you very much, Antonio. Again, we're really pleased with with the integration with Ryder and Odin. We're hoping to get more in there in the future as well. To wrap up, really, a couple of useful things is don't forget the Unity student plan. If there are any students out there, the Unity student plan is great. It includes a Unity license and discounts on stuff, and Odin is included free for that as well. So if you're a student, you can get yourself Odin for free. I also have to point out that Ryder is also free for students. It's not part of the student plan, but it's available from our website in a very similar manner, and you can apply for it for free as a student. Let me just move on to the next one. If you want more information, the best place to go to is odininspector.com. You can ping them on Twitter /X and at Odin_inspector. And if you want anything about Ryder, you can go to jetbrains.com/Ryder. And again, you can ping us on JetBrains Ryder too. The JetBrains TV channel on YouTube has a whole load of videos. We've got stuff on Unity. We've got stuff on all the other functionality and features and products that we've got there as well. And so all that leaves me to do is to say thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining in the comments. And thank you very much, Antonio, for being a part of our session today.
Thank you for having me on. That was great.